Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me today for this webinar that I'm so excited to bring to you all, covering the 4 reasons why your $1 million business or not-for-profit is missing out on grant funds. And today I will be sharing with you those 4 reasons why you may be missing out on grant funds that you deserve. So I'm Liz Fleming of the Grants Club. I'm based here in Australia. I do want to caveat and start this webinar by saying that most of the information here is relevant only to Australia, but there is some general points there as well. So if you aren't in Australia, you're more than welcome to watch it, but just know that most of the information that I'm referring to is Australian specific. So just want to start with that. Let's make a start. I hope you find it informative. And if you have any questions, please email me at liz@grantsclub.com.au and I can answer all of your questions. So you're probably sitting there wondering, why am I missing out on grants? You're an established business or a not-for-profit and you're killing it. You're doing so much work, having great impact, but you just don't feel like you can get ahead. Or you've heard of other people getting grants around you and wondering, why not us? What are we doing wrong? Or you've tried to apply for grants before and you haven't been successful. Does this sound familiar? Or, we've all got not enough time, not enough resources, not enough hours in the day, and we don't want to be wasting time on grants that we may not get or may not be guaranteed to get. So I know that it's a risk factor. I know that we've got to make those decisions and we might not be making those right decisions. And you might just be sitting there going, yeah, it's not fair. Why am I missing out? And if you've thought yes to any of these, you're not alone. And I'm glad that you're here today watching this webinar to learn why it is that you may be missing out on grants. I do want to ask the question though of, do you know how much free money you have missed out on in the past? And I don't like to dwell on the past, but it is a real talking point of now we have the opportunity to learn how to do it properly, how to not miss out on those grants and look to the future so that we can grow, have greater impact and create the business or not-for-profit that we really want and probably what we set out to do when we first started. So I'm Liz of the Grants Club. I'm a grant strategist, coach, and grants writer for organisations who want to take a strategic approach to funding opportunities and to support you to grow and have greater impact. What I'm obsessed with is making sure that your business has the best opportunity to be successful and help you do that so that we can secure the funding that you deserve. And you know how there's never enough hours in the day to even think about grants. Your to-do list is too long and grants just seem way too stressful. Anything to do with the government seems complicated. Well, I'm here to help you. And this is what I do every day for clients across Australia to help them get the funding that they deserve. I work one-on-one, I do workshops, but I also make sure that I tailor my approach to what is going to work for you. I always make this geeky admission that I do love developing grant strategies. I do love grant writing, and I probably also love getting the money from the governments. I am a chartered accountant. I've worked in various government grant programs over the years, and that's where I had the introduction to grants, that they even existed, that the government was willing to give private entities, businesses, not-for-profits, and community groups grants to help them along. I've got an 85% success rate and I've met 100% of the deadlines, because if we don't meet those deadlines, we're sure as hell going to miss out on that funding. And I work with you to take a strategic approach to your growth plans. And if you do want to get in touch, I can have a chat with you about how I can help you and your organisation to take a more strategic approach so that you can get that funding. All the details will be at the end of the webinar, and I'd love for you to get in touch. So now's the time to be thinking about what's your zone of genius, probably what you're doing in your organisation. And my zone of genius is working out grant strategies, working out funding, finding that money, developing projects and programs so that you can maximise the opportunities that are out there. This is my favorite quote when it comes to grant writing. And if you're not in it to win it, you're definitely going to get a no. So nothing is more expensive than a missed opportunity. So we don't want to be missing out on those grants. We don't want to let those opportunities slide. And we don't want to be too busy to even make the application. We need to be proactive so that we don't miss out. So my guarantee to you at the end of today's webinar is that you'll have 4 reasons why you're potentially missing out on grant funding and a better understanding of what you can do so that you don't miss out anymore. I'm excited to share this content with you as this is the very first time that I have delivered this. And at the end, I hope that you'll have greater clarity and a deep insight into how to be successful with grants. So reason number 1 is that people have no grant strategy. They have strategy of what they're going to do, might have a workforce strategy, might have a bit of a plan, but they don't have a specific grant strategy. And this looks like you're just waiting for a grant opportunity to drop or a program to be dropped in your inbox. You might see a post on social media. You might bump into someone, but you're really rushing to meet that deadline. And that's being really, really reactive. So we want to flip that around and turn into be proactive to reduce the stress, to become effective, and then ending up being successful. And this is what a business that consistently wins grants does. They're not waiting, they're planning. They've got it all sorted, they just don't have the funds, and they know what they want for the next 12 to 24 months, and sometimes even 3 to 5 years. And they're also aligning their grant strategy with their business strategy, and this is really important. Your grant strategy should not take away from what you want to do as your core business or what your core focus might be. So what does a good grant strategy actually involve? This involves mapping out your business priorities, your growth, your innovation, your workforce hiring, your infrastructure and assets that you may need or already have. Then you identify the types of grants that you need to support these goals. What is it that you're actually going to do? And what do you really need the funding for? This is the number 1 question. At the end of the day, if we're asking for money, we need to be able to prove that it's to purchase something. And then you can create a timeline and get your core documents ready before a grant even opens. This can include quotes, talking to suppliers, talking to partners, talking to your staff, planning out what that project would look like if you were to do it, whether it be through a grant program or whether you just do it on your own or as a user pays. So it doesn't matter what the end outcome is or where the funding ultimately comes from. What is that program or project trying to aim? What are the outcomes and what objectives are we trying to meet? And proactive businesses are always one step ahead, and that's what gives them the edge. Taking a strategic approach and taking the time to work out exactly what's involved in your project is vital. The better you understand that project, its components and outcomes, the easier it is to bring that growth and grant funding strategy together. The next reason is that sometimes organisations are just applying for any grant that comes out, whether they need it or not. So I've seen many businesses and not-for-profits waste dozens of hours chasing funding that was never going to be a good fit because they didn't meet the criteria or because that grant opportunity didn't actually align with what they really want to do or with their core business or have anything to do with what they were trying to achieve or what they enjoyed doing or having any impact on their current community. It was just a complete waste of time, and this is what we want to avoid. It is tempting to take a scattergun approach and apply for every grant that comes out because, hey, who doesn't love free money? But just because there's a grant that exists that you may be eligible for does not mean that you should apply for them all. Instead, we need to get strategic. And thinking to ourselves, does this grant align with our current business goals? Are we even eligible? We need to think about, is our entity and organisation eligible? And is our project also eligible as well? Do we have the capacity to even complete and deliver and report on this project if we were to be successful? If it doesn't allow for extra resources to be funded by the grant, do we have that capacity in our organisation to even do the delivery? And when you apply for grants that truly align, it's much easier to write the grant application, and we can craft stronger applications and significantly increase our success rate. And you'll save time and money in the process because we're not draining our resources, we're not wasting time on the wrong grants, and we're being very strategic and focused on applying for the right ones that will give us the greater results. The third reason, and this one's a bit sneaky because it catches people off guard, but it's about not being grant ready. And if you've seen me talk about grants before, being grant ready is something I talk about all the time. When a grant opportunity comes up and suddenly you're scrambling to pull the application together, plus the business plan, plus the cash flow, plus quotes, plus letters of support, team bios, finding your insurance certificates, it's all just too rushed. We miss stuff and it becomes really overwhelming and stressful because we're also trying to do our day-to-day normal operations as well. So then the grant application becomes an extra thing that just becomes way too hard. But then we've started it, so we keep going. And then have we really done the best we can? And because we're unprepared, it can just get messy. So here's the truth. The best applications are prepared well in advance. And what do I mean by this? It comes down to the planning. And it might not be the minute details, and it might not be exactly what you're going to put in your application, but if you've done 3/4 of it or even half of it, it's a much better starting point than starting from scratch. So when I talk about being grant ready, what I really mean is that you've got all your core documents, your core organisation documents. You know your ABN, you know your entity type and number, you know all those registration numbers as well. You've got your financial statements up to date, you've got your business plan. Even if it's a one-pager, that's good enough for a business plan. And these need to be ready at your hand to be able to just simply tweak and update as you need to bring it current and then attach to the grant application. Grant ready also means you can easily show the impact of your project on jobs, growth, sustainability, efficiency, the economy. Basically, how is it really going to improve as per the guidelines, as per the objectives and the outcomes that this grant program is trying to achieve? Remember, the government is trying to outsource. They're trying to achieve their objectives that they've promised to their constituents, and now they're outsourcing through the grant opportunity to you to be able to run those programs so that they don't have to. And this is also where it's important that you've established relationships prior with your suppliers, potential service delivery partners, other organisations, community cohorts, and anyone that will benefit from this program or project going ahead. It will then make it much easier for you to be able to get letters of support in that really short time frame. And it'll also allow you to brainstorm with them as well, because they might have ideas that could even further enhance your project as well. And you know how your project aligns with these local, state, or federal objectives and priorities. That is also key. So it's not glamorous, but being grant ready is what separates the funded and the successful organisations from those who are frustrated that they just can't find or secure any grant funds. When you're prepared, you can move quickly, confidently, and strategically and complete those grant applications with ease. And that's ultimately what we want. So think about how grant ready is your organisation, and what of those things that I've just talked about do you still need to do? And the final reason that I'm going to talk about today why businesses and not-for-profits are missing out on grants is that their application forms are just not compelling enough. What do I mean by this? It doesn't mean they're bad at business. It doesn't mean that they have a bad project or that they've got bad ideas. It's just how well or not the application is written and structured. Have we answered the questions that are being asked? Have we used all the word count? Have we told our story in a compelling way? You can have the best, most amazing project, but if your application is vague, unfocused, or too generic, you just won't stand out from the rest of the applications. Grant applications are a bit like a job application. They're all generic, white paper, same computer font, and so your words on those pages need to make you stand out. Funders are looking for clarity, impact, and alignment. Remember, they know nothing about you, nothing about your project, nothing about your organisation. So you've got to go back to basics using simple language, but also be able to showcase and tell the story of why your project, your organisation, and your proposal should be approved for the funding. They also want to know that that proposed project is going to meet their objectives and deliver the outcomes of the grant program. At the end of the day, the government agencies want to be able to come and cut a ribbon, take a photo, hand over a big check, or shake someone's hand with a photo for the media. So there's got to be something tangible in it for them. And they've also got to make sure that it is aligning with their priorities, because the governments are risk averse. And there's also a lot of internal processes like audits and justifications that they need to meet to ensure that that funding has gone to truly proper and impactful projects. So you might be thinking, what do I mean by compelling application? Surely just write it, fill in some words, tell them what you want. Well, what we really want to see, and we have to step into the government agency's shoes, they want a clear, well-articulated problem. What are we trying to solve? Why is this project needed? And how does this project solve that problem that we've identified? Does that problem relate directly to their objectives and outcomes that they're trying to achieve? It hopefully does. If it doesn't, then we're probably applying for the wrong grant. We need it to be positively written, using persuasive language to showcase our project as a viable project to be approved and executed. We also need strong financials to show viability and need for that project. Is it going to become sustainable? Can it stand on its own 2 feet after the grant funding runs out? Or is it a one-off project that will fast track something or ultimately end up in another area and growing that impact? And we also need to prove and show that this organisation isn't solely relying on this particular grant funding to run and fund your business as usual organisation activities as well. That is a key thing that the government will definitely be looking for as well. So it won't cover things like operational costs. It won't cover your office costs. It will only cover direct costs directly attributable to that project. And we also need to show how we're going to show evidence of these outcomes when they're achieved, how we're going to evaluate it, what we're going to measure, how are we going to show the change from the start and the end, and also how this project will create jobs, drive innovation, or deliver impact. And here's the big one. We need to make sure we follow the guidelines. Don't assume you know what they want, and read the criteria. Use their language and answer every question directly within the word count limits that are given as well. The strongest applications don't just tick boxes. They tell a compelling story that makes it easy for funders to say, yes, I want to fund that project. So yes, let's finish with this. If you're sitting there thinking, yes, this is what we've been missing, one of these or all of these 4 reasons are why we are not getting grants or why we have missed out on grants over the years. Now, this is really your starting point if you now have had that aha moment of, yeah, we probably haven't done that, we probably haven't got that up to speed, and we probably haven't fully done that. This slide is your starting point. Take a screenshot. This is probably the most important slide of this whole webinar to really be thinking to yourself, what is it we need to do next? And these 4 steps are the foundation of a consistent, successful funding strategy. First, you need a clear grant strategy. When you know what you're going after and how it fits into your big picture, everything becomes more focused and more effective and much more streamlined. Second, you focus on the right grants. No more chasing anything that pops up. You're strategic, selective, and you only apply when it's a strong fit. And third, you are truly grant ready. Financials sorted, documents sorted, know where you're going to get your letters of support from sorted. You're ready to go. Your project plan is half drafted. It's clear and aligned, and you're not scrambling. You're confident and in control. And if a grant opportunity was to come out tomorrow, you'd be able to do it in a very streamlined and less stressful way. And finally, you're writing compelling, funder-focused applications, and you understand the language that they use, and you use it to tell a story that gets attention and gets funded, because at the end of the day, that's what we want. And here's good news. I can help you with every single one of these steps, whether it's building a strategy, finding your right opportunities, becoming grant ready, or strengthening your grant applications. I've got the tools, the frameworks, and the experience to guide you through it all. If you're ready to secure the grant funding your organisation deserves, let's chat. I'd love to take you to the next step. I can show you how I can help you and your business, organisation, or not-for-profit to develop your grant strategy to grow and expand with business grants. I've helped so many clients do this to be able to get 25 grand grants for that piece of equipment that they just couldn't afford. For grants and businesses where it's $500,000 to run a 2-year program. So I've got lots of examples of clients that have taken the strategic approach. We've worked through it together. They've clearly defined what it is they want, what they want the money for, and they've invested that time into becoming, time and money into becoming grant ready, so that when the grant opportunity comes up, they are ready to go. And my favourite quote when it comes to grants, nothing is more expensive than a missed opportunity. And I don't want any of you that are watching this webinar to miss out on any grant opportunities, because there is just no reason for it. We need to invest in that time and space to getting ready, being prepared, doing some pre-planning so that we can secure that funding that you deserve. So thank you so much for joining me today. I've really enjoyed bringing this to you and going through those 4 reasons why your business may be missing out on grant funding. And grants are a tricky business, but working with an expert, taking some time to plan and taking some time to become grant ready and working out what your strategy really is when it comes to grants and funding can be the game changer that you were looking for 2025. If you do want to get in touch, you can head to my website, www.grantsclub.com.au. I do have some time in my diary for discovery calls if you want to work together, or send me an email. I'd love for you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram and connect with me on LinkedIn. And you may have found me on YouTube already or be watching this on YouTube. This is where I put all my resources and all the information about grants. So thank you for joining me. I hope you've learned something, and I hope that you take away at least one action that you're going to become grant ready so that you don't miss out on any more grants. Thank you and have a great day.